In any case, it has something to do with developing the mind of Christ. The two parts. Developing the mind of Christ. And the second part is in carrying out our work as Cursillo leaders. So basically there are two ideas that we will work on this evening. No? By the way, if you guys are interested in this PowerPoint presentation, I can email it to you. So you just have to email me, no? If you like to watch it on your own. So the first thing then that is to determine what is our work as Cursillo leaders. Our work as Cursillo. This means therefore reviewing what is the Cursillo. Okay na lang yan. What is the Cursillo movement? So the first thing is just to think about the goal of this living Christianity. This comes from our manual. Is to form a small group of Christians who will live in the environment with the gospel. So that's the first idea that we have to really focus on. That no matter else, it's not to form a rosary group. It's not, we are not here. We are here to form small groups of Christians who will live in the environment with the gospel. That's the task of the Cursillo movement. Whatever else we may do, have a Christmas party, whatever else, in a sense that all of that must support this basic idea that we have joined a movement which is to form small group of Christians. And there is something else that this group does. If I can make it move. Oh, there. These Christians who form this group will achieve their own individual callings. Each and every one of us is given an individual calling, but the group supports that individual calling. That's the theory of the Cursillo. This comes from the manual, by the way, with respect to the overall structuring of the Christian life. So when we ask ourselves, we develop the mind of Christ in our work as Cursillo leaders. This is what we are talking about. All right? Is that something that's new to you, or is that you're familiar with already? You know this already, no? Okay. So this is just a review.
Laser lang pa din.
Oh, laser. Laser. Which one is the laser?
The corner one.
Wire. Okay. Now, how to make that move? Okay. So therefore, we go to the ideas of the vocation of the laity. Given the fact that we're talking about the proper environment that the laity has, that we in the Cursillo movement have. Okay, these are words from the popes. Vatican II. Lay people whose particular vocation places them in the midst of the world and in charge of the most varied temporal task must, for that very reason, exercise a very special form of evangelization. It is not an ordinary thing. It's a very special form of evangelization. And what Vatican II was trying to do was to separate the idea that there is the work of the clergy and there is work of the laity. All right? And we are not trying to mix. We are not trying to ask the clergy to work like lay people. Neither are we trying to ask the lay people to act like the clergy. Those are two vocations within the church. Let me give you an example of an extreme of what happened in the 1960s before the Vatican Council. It has something to do with clergy, okay? Especially in France. It was called the worker priest movement. They were really convinced that we have to bring Christ to the marketplace. So what did they do? They abandoned the parishes and worked as ordinary laborers out there so that they can be close to the people. It didn't work. It didn't work because people would not respect them anymore. Okay? That's mixing the work of the clergy with the laity. What Vatican II therefore is saying, the vocation of the lay people is in the midst of the world. And so your vocation is out there, where the office is, or wherever you are. That is the social environment we're talking about. And now, the next one here may surprise you a little bit. And this comes from, this is 1965, and this is 1975. 10 years later, Pope John Paul II expanded on that idea. And here is what he said. Now, as I said, this may be the primary and immediate task is not to establish and develop the ecclesial community. That is the task of those who are working within, in a sense. It is out there. Now, like for example, again, let's make it very specific, and I hope you will be able to ask questions about this. When you say, oh, I am really a successful Cursillista because I am now a Eucharistic minister. That is not wrong. There's nothing bad about that. But that is not the focus of the Cursillo movement. The Cursillo movement brings us out there into the world. But there is no doubt that the Cursillo movement, at least the Filipino, is one of the most important source of the diaconate. And that's a good thing, okay? I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but when you come down to the essence of the Cursillo movement, this is what the Pope has said. That is, ours is really the ever-present active affairs of the world. That it's out there that we are doing, we should be doing. Okay, so therefore we're done with that idea. So, the title that we have the mind of Christ, developing the mind of Christ. It is one phrase that is found in 1 Corinthians 2:16, and St. Paul is talking about all the many problems that they had, the challenges that they had to face in their life there. At the end of it, Jesus says, we have the mind of Christ. And what did he mean by that? When we work out there in the world, okay, we share the perspective, the purpose, and the plan of Christ for the world. That's the mind of Christ that we are looking for. We identify with Christ's purposes to seek and to save what was lost. Again, another way of expressing the mind of Christ. Third one, we share in his perspective of humility and obedience. Philippians. Another aspect, and there are many of these. I'm just giving some examples tonight. The second is compassion. When we are out there in the world, we are doing compassion. So, as you are thinking about this, I'm not talking about in my parish council. Is this what yes, we should do that also in the parish council. But out there in the job world, can you be humble? Can you be compassionate to people there? Prayerful dependence of God out there, not just when I'm going to church on Sunday. You know, I was giving this in your parishes. Did you have the dismissal part explained on this Sunday?
Yes.
What I really liked about this was the word ite missa est. No, you've heard of that, no? Go, the mass is ended. Did they explain to you that missa is the word for mass? But it comes from a Latin word which is mittere, to send. And therefore, a derivative of the word is mission. You are being mission. Go, you are being mission. And at Concord, I told them, maybe some of you think that when I say, go, the mass is ended, I'm saying, okay, we'll see you next Sunday. No. You're being sent out there into the world. Or as someone else said also, is when the priest says, the Lord be with you, go, the mass is ended, or the deacon will say it when the deacon is available. He's not saying to you that, okay, you go now, and that's it for Sunday. We'll see you again later on, like that. No, it's really go and do something out there. So that's the idea. The mind of Christ when we go out there. I put etc. there because there are many others, and here are some of them. The mind of Christ, the basic idea, is in contrast with the world. The world says this and Christ does not say that. I'm just giving the example of the Beatitudes, okay? By way of example. And I want you to think, why is the mind of Christ in sharp contrast with the world when he says that blessed are the poor in spirit? What does the world say? Blessed are the rich. Di ba? Opposite eh. And if you are poor, kawawa ka naman. But that is not the mind of Christ. So when we say develop the mind of Christ, can we stand there before the world and say that I don't believe that, I don't like that, or I don't know what else should you say? You should be as rich as possible. That's not the mind of Christ. That's not the mind of Christ. No, it's nice to be rich. I'm not saying you should not be. I hope you will become rich. But that is not the purpose of life itself. Okay? So that's the idea. Just go to the second one. Blessed are kawawa naman, those who mourn. In the mind of Christ, no. They are blessed. They are not kawawa. It's so opposite, no? For example, if someone is kawawa naman siya, you know, kanina, I was listening to TFC. And then, of course, they're talking about poor Gloria Arroyo. Bakit raw kawawa si Gloria? Kasi walang naaawa sa kanya. Grabe talagang Pilipino. Why is she so kawawa? Because no one is out kawawa of her. She's all alone, the poor girl. Okay. But anyway, so, blessed are they who mourn. Can we develop that mentality out there in the field, you know? Okay. Blessed are those who are meek. The opposite, no? You should be forward. No. Alam ko yan, attitude, di ba? That's what we develop in the world. We should have attitude. That is not the way Christ would like us to act. Okay, so that's okay. I'm just going through the 8 ones here. Hunger and thirst for righteousness. Blessed are they. They are not the bad people. When they go out there and say, occupy Oakland, they are not the bad people. I know both of you are Republicans here. No, I'm not saying that we should break the law of the land, but I'm just saying that if you hunger and thirst for righteousness, you are on the side of Christ. The opposite of that is against the mind of Christ. And I hope you keep thinking, getting out there tomorrow or the next day, I'm going to be back in the office, or I'm going to be back there. How do I act this out in my life? To be merciful. Yeah, that's important also. That's kind of easy. No? Although in the office, very often it's dog eat dog. You take care of yourself. Di ba, no? Now, how can we as Christians say, no, we are going to take care of each other. We will help each other. And I think if you try that, people will say, wait a minute, there's something wrong with you. This is my job, that's your job. No, maybe we should do something together. Right? So these are the mind mentality of Christ that we're trying to develop. The clean of heart, of course. The meaning of clean of heart are those who are, they call transparent, no? People who are transparent. And of course, again, in the corporate world, it's on a need-to-know basis. Di ba? If you didn't need to know, I'm not going to tell you, no matter how much. Especially if it's going to make you look good. No, that's the corporate world. That's how it works. Ano? Don't ask, don't. Okay, so again, we're looking at the contrast, the mind of the world and the mind of Christ. The mind of the world and the mind of Christ. Okay. Peacemakers. Yan. We like to talk about peace, di ba? Peace be with you, ganun. Pero when things happen, gatong ng tama yun. Ganun talaga yun siya. That will never make peace. That is against the mind of Christ. You know? And okay, so try to develop, how do you develop that mind, the mind of Christ? Next. persecuted. There was something that came to my mind because it happens so very often without our. Oh, we were talking about Pacquiao. Kill him! Patayin mo! And the reason it came up was that I was telling Deacon Steve and the group there that about 2 o'clock I got a call from Washington D.C. There is a group, Justice and Peace Committee, and they're trying to come up with a fundraiser, really big time fundraiser for the poor, and they're looking to honor people around the world who are doing good for the poor. And believe it or not, these guys came up with the name of Manuel Pacquiao. Oh, because he does so much. My answer to him, because I did not know where he was going, he's a priest, he's an oblate. I said, you know, Andy, boxing is not one of my favorite sports. I don't know if you honor this guy who is a good boxer. You know, he should beat up on someone. You know. I said, no, we're not honoring him because he's a boxer, but because he's doing good for people, for the poor. Yeah, and he spent millions of dollars, millions of pesos.
Not only that, it's before he gets into a fight, he prays for the person that his opponent. I mean, we're in the world to say that. And
really?
Bless my opponent that he might not get hurt.
That's the same thing.
He has a mind of Christ, he has a heart of Christ, but he has surrounded with so many corrupt that, he gets pulled down.
Yeah.
But, the thing about it is he's very strong, so he gives his money to the poor, and then, of course, there's
That's both for him as
there's women
president.
after him. It's not like us, we have a mind and a heart. Of course, in Islam, to get thrown into the world, and there's so much sin, there's so much corruption that we get pulled down. So that's why we have to go back every day and say, God, help me again, not to kill my boss, not to kill my companion.
You gave me a good segue for a joke. Again, boxer was asked, do you pray before you fight? He said, hell no, because the other guy, he also prayed. And what God gonna do?
That's a good one.
Okay, look at this. Persecution, the negative things that happen. The fight back that very, very often. How do you bring about peace when someone is mean in the office? And maybe you are the one who's mean. But there are just some people who are mean, no? And they probably they don't even realize it. How do you deal with someone who's mean? Be a peacemaker with that person to be understanding. Instead of fighting back. You know why? For a mean person, that's the best thing that could happen. They're looking for a fight. Oh, yeah. So if you don't fight them, they get disappointed. Diba? So some people are just mean. And I don't know why. It's their personality, no? They just keep pushing other people. And then if you just let go, they look disappointed. Why don't you fight back? I don't want to.
I have the mind of Christ.
And finally, this is the final one. The mind of Christ we receive because of the Spirit of God. We cannot develop it on our own. We have to pray for it. Everything that we have talked about is in a sense unnatural. Diba? Blessed are the poor. It's not that natural. We would rather be above the... So it really comes down to the prayer that we need to have for ourselves and for each other. So those are the ideas then. Developing the mind of Christ as we work in the world where we are at. And always to remember that the temptation or the sin that we are always trying, because the mind of Christ is very opposite to the mind of the world. And that's what we're doing. And we are found in the world. So that's our challenge. Okay. That's it.